The facade of celebrity romance is one of the most compelling narratives Hollywood manufactures. We watch the fairy tale weddings, read the breathless magazine interviews, and convince ourselves that for this specific golden couple, the love story will genuinely last. But behind the blinding flashbulbs and the carefully curated social media posts, the reality of these high-stakes relationships is often far darker. The moment the spotlight pivots from eternal devotion to irreparable damage, the breakup ceases to be a private affair. It becomes an explosive cultural event. We recently witnessed the painful disintegration of the relationship between pop icon Selena Bloom and NBA star Marcus Jones, a divorce filing that came out of nowhere, immediately sparking a furious debate over prenuptial clauses, digital asset division, and the custody battle over their shared charitable foundation. The news dominated headlines for weeks, a harsh reminder that when the world's elite fall apart, it is loud, messy, and designed to extract the maximum psychological and financial toll. But the Bloom-Jones split, shocking as it was, follows a long, dramatic lineage. It is merely the latest chapter in the history of the celebrity breakup, a history defined by vicious legal warfare, unimaginable public humiliation, and the systemic destruction of carefully crafted professional empires. Tonight we dive deep into the 5 most explosive celebrity divorces in history, cases that were not just expensive but utterly destructive. These are the splits that changed laws, rewrote careers, and revealed the terrifying price of public love. We will investigate the psychological context behind the betrayal, the ruthless legal strategies employed, and how the media, in turn, fed the frenzy. We begin our countdown with a scandal that destroyed the image of one of the world's most untouchable athletes, a moment when the myth of control shattered spectacularly for the world to see. Top 5. The myth of perfection. Tiger Woods and Elin Nordegren. When Tiger Woods married Elin Nordegren in 2004, the union was treated less like a personal relationship and more like a corporate merger between global supremacy and idealized domesticity. Woods was in the middle of arguably the most dominant run in sports history. His image was pristine, built on a foundation of relentless excellence, controlled performance, and unwavering dedication. His endorsements were gold-plated, representing brands that prized his clean, multicultural, and universally respected persona. Nordegren, a Swedish model and former nanny, provided the perfect supporting image: beautiful, reserved, and seemingly content to remain slightly out of the primary spotlight. Their marriage, featuring 2 young children and a staggering degree of wealth, was the ultimate portrait of modern American success. It seemed unbreakable, less a relationship sustained by emotion, and more one mandated by destiny. That illusion of perfection came crashing down not in a lawyer's office, but on a suburban street in Florida in the early morning hours following Thanksgiving, 2009. The first sign of trouble was an inexplicable single-car crash, a low-speed collision with a fire hydrant and a tree. The initial police reports were vague, citing a minor accident, but the details that quickly began to leak were anything but minor. Elin Nordegren, reportedly using a golf club, smashed the back windows of the Cadillac Escalade to retrieve an injured Woods. The official story of a sleepy driver quickly disintegrated under the weight of far more salacious speculation. The real explosion came days later with the swift, brutal emergence of mistress after mistress. What began as a rumor about a single affair quickly turned into a deluge of women cocktail waitresses, club promoters, adult film stars, all claiming long-term, concurrent relationships with the golf legend. The sheer scale of the deception was breathtaking, revealing an entirely separate life hidden behind the impenetrable wall of Woods' public fame. This was not a single, regrettable indiscretion. It was a systemic pattern of behavior that contradicted every single virtue his endorsement profile stood for. The media response was instantaneous and apocalyptic. The incident itself, the absurd visual of the world's greatest golfer running into a tree and the subsequent emergency window smashing, was immediately archived in what we classify as behind the lights archive. Public fails, S3, E12, a textbook example of an athlete's carefully constructed public safety net being utterly shredded by a private moment of catastrophic failure. The public had been sold a lie, and now they were demanding their money back in the form of unforgiving scrutiny. The ensuing divorce proceedings were highly acrimonious, though Woods, advised by a powerful legal team, worked aggressively to keep the details private and out of open court. a strategy that many high-profile figures attempt, but few execute successfully. The key issue was not just the division of assets, which were substantial. Woods's net worth was easily in the hundreds of millions, but the non-disclosure agreements and the psychological cost of the systemic betrayal. Nordegren's primary focus was, understandably, the protection and financial security of their two children. The final settlement was an astronomical figure, reportedly upwards of $100 million. For many, this figure represented the punitive price of maintaining a massive facade. It was a separation payment that guaranteed Nordegren and the children a life of total financial independence. But it was also the cost of silence, an assurance that the most intimate, damaging details of Woods's double life would not be permanently entered into the public record via court documents. The impact on Woods's career was immediate and devastating. Major sponsors like Accenture and Gillette dropped him, quantifying the sudden loss of trust in measurable market dollars. His public image, built on control and precision, was replaced by one of recklessness and moral compromise. While he eventually returned to golf and even achieved a monumental late-career victory, the myth of Tiger Woods as the flawless icon was permanently broken. His divorce from Elin Nordegren stands as a seminal event in celebrity history, proving that when the personal life of a global brand explodes, the fallout is measured not just in marital dissolution, but in the complete public collapse of a carefully constructed identity. The Woods-Nordegren split defined the cost of deceit and the rapid velocity of modern scandal, setting the stage for even more complex and brutal divorces to come. Our next case involves two artists whose split was less about the quiet shame of infidelity and more about a protracted, vicious public fight over money and artistic integrity, a battle that devolved into a stunning theatrical performance in a British courtroom. The breakup of a carefully controlled image like Tiger Woods's was destructive, but at least the primary battle was conducted largely behind closed doors. Our next case, however, represents the absolute opposite, a celebrity divorce that became a public, procedural farce, a protracted courtroom slugfest where one of the most beloved figures in music history and his estranged wife engaged in a vicious, highly personalized exchange that was less a legal separation and more an exercise in character assassination. Top 4. The billion-dollar spat. Paul McCartney and Heather Mills. To understand the explosion of the Paul McCartney and Heather Mills divorce, one must first grasp the bizarre nature of their initial coupling. Sir Paul McCartney, a knighted global icon, the co-pilot of the Beatles and a man who had enjoyed a seemingly perfect marriage to Linda Eastman for 30 years until her passing, was seen as untouchable musical royalty. Heather Mills, an anti-landmine activist and former model, brought a far more complicated, media-savvy, and arguably controversial public image to the relationship. They married in 2002, a union widely seen by McCartney's loyal fans as rushed and ill-advised, with persistent, murmuring allegations that Mills was seeking to exploit his colossal wealth and fame. For 4 years, they maintained a high-profile, if somewhat scrutinized, public front, focused heavily on their shared activism and the birth of their daughter. But when they announced their separation in 2006, the whispers turned into a roar. The ensuing 2 years of legal maneuvering became a masterclass in how quickly public affection can curdle into venomous hatred, often driven by the media's framing of the gold digger versus the betrayed legend. The proceedings quickly escalated far beyond the division of assets, transforming into a grueling examination of character, motive, and spending habits. Mills demanded a staggering sum, initially estimated to be around $250 million, claiming her contributions to McCartney's life and their daughter's upbringing justified the figure, given the vastness of his fortune, often estimated to be over $1 billion. McCartney, through his team, fought the figure bitterly, seeking to minimize the payout and contain the damage to his public image. The most explosive period occurred during the final, 5-day court hearing in 2008. While the proceedings were technically private, the level of personal animosity and theatrical conduct ensured that every devastating detail found its way into the press. Mills acted as her own counsel at points, adding an element of bizarre drama to the courtroom and making highly inflammatory statements both inside and outside the legal chambers. She accused McCartney of cruelty, drug use, and even physical abuse claims he vehemently denied. The pressure was so intense that at one point, Mills was reportedly seen pouring a glass of water over McCartney's solicitor's head, an act of sheer legal theater archived in Behind the Lights archive. Legal circus, S5, E9 as one of the most unprofessional, yet captivating, moments in divorce court history. When the judgment was finally delivered by High Court Judge Mr. Justice Bennett, it was scathing, particularly toward Mills, whose credibility was questioned repeatedly in the official ruling. The judge meticulously calculated the award, settling on a figure of $48.6 million, 24.3 million British pounds at the time. While an immense sum by any measure, it was significantly less than the $250 million Mills had demanded. But the real shockwave came from the judge's written judgment, which was publicly released. It detailed the evidence of their vicious feuding, the arguments over household staff, and the immense disparity between their financial claims and the court's factual findings. The publication of this legal document was the final act of the explosion. It laid bare the emotional and financial cost of the brief marriage, confirming for the public that the fairy tale was, in fact, a bitterly contested, toxic negotiation over wealth. For McCartney, the divorce was a profound public trauma that temporarily stained his legacy, while for Mills, it cemented a media narrative she was never fully able to shake. It was the quintessential riches to rags story inverted, showcasing how extreme wealth can turn a legal separation into a performative, public spectacle with lasting reputational consequences. If Woods' case was the sudden collapse of a moral high ground, and McCartney's was the brutal fight over financial legacy, our next entry represents the complete and total demolition of Hollywood's most powerful, socially conscious, and globally recognized couple, a split that has dragged on for nearly a decade, defining modern custody warfare. The explosion of Tiger Woods' image was financially disastrous, and the breakdown of Paul McCartney's marriage was publicly humiliating. But when the most powerful, most globally visible humanitarian couple in modern Hollywood decided to separate, the explosion was less a single flash and more a slow-burning, years-long war of attrition. This is a divorce that moved beyond simply dividing money or property. It centered entirely on the relentless public combat over their children, redefining the term high-conflict separation. Top 3. Brangelina's War. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, or Brangelina as they were universally known, were never just a Hollywood couple. They were a brand, a geopolitical force, and the architects of an unconventional high-profile family that spanned continents. Their relationship, which began under the scandalous shadow of Pitt's split from Jennifer Aniston, evolved into a symbol of glamorous, purposeful stardom. They traveled the world, adopted children, and dedicated immense resources to humanitarian causes. Their union was a spectacle of power and seemingly shared ethical commitment. For over a decade, they managed their combined stardom with military precision, culminating in their quiet, intimate marriage in 2014. Their decision to end the marriage in September 2016 sent immediate, devastating shockwaves across the globe. A moment quickly documented in Behind the Lights archive, Power Couples, S8, E4, as the point when the Hollywood humanitarian ideal collapsed. The magnitude of the news was immediately amplified by the nature of the filing. Jolie did not just file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. She simultaneously filed for sole physical custody of their 6 children. This was the first indication that this divorce would be fundamentally different. The central focus was not the staggering joint net worth or even their expansive real estate portfolio, including the French estate, Chateau Miraval. The battleground was custody. The immediate reason cited in the media was an alleged altercation involving Pitt and one of their children aboard a private jet, an incident that prompted investigations by child welfare authorities and the FBI, both of which ultimately cleared Pitt of wrongdoing. But the damage had been done. The narrative shifted instantly from conscious uncoupling to a high-stakes emergency involving the safety and well-being of the children. What followed has been an unprecedented, almost decade-long procedural nightmare. Unlike the quick resolution achieved in other mega-divorces, the Jolie-Pitt split became a vicious cycle of legal motions, appeals, and private disputes that leaked consistently into the public eye. They spent millions fighting over key procedural decisions, including the role of the private judge overseeing their case, highlighting the extreme measures wealthy celebrities employ to maintain discretion, only for the constant legal warring to guarantee the opposite outcome. The fight over Chateau Miraval, their shared multi-million-dollar French vineyard, became a particularly ugly symbol of their enduring enmity. Jolie sold her share of the estate to a Russian oligarch-backed entity, leading to massive counter-litigation from Pitt, who claimed the sale was a deliberate act of malice designed to inflict pain and disrupt his control over the asset. This financial dispute underscored the depth of the hostility that persisted long after the marriage was legally dissolved. The true explosion of this divorce lies in its relentless longevity and the psychological toll it has extracted. It exposed the brutal reality that a breakup involving children, even those of immense privilege, can be weaponized into an indefinite war, trapping the family in a cycle of public scrutiny and legal entanglement. The Jolie-Pitt separation demonstrated that sometimes the most destructive force is not the initial scandal or the financial cost, but the sheer, agonizing duration of the conflict itself. If the disintegration of Angelina showed us the permanent cost of custody warfare, our next case reveals something far more chilling: the calculated, dramatic extraction of one spouse from a marriage shrouded in intense secrecy and the overwhelming influence of external organizations. This split was less a public fight and more a high-speed, strategic legal maneuver designed for immediate escape. While the Jolie-Pitt separation was defined by its protracted legal warfare, our next entry is explosive for the opposite reason: its shocking speed and the intense, almost unbelievable secrecy surrounding the filing. This was not a negotiation. It was a strategically executed extraction. It was a divorce that exposed the terrifying power dynamics at play when celebrity status intersects with institutional control, suggesting the high-profile marriage itself was less about partnership and more about image management. TOP 2, The Great Escape. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. The relationship between Tom Cruise, one of the world's most recognizable and highly paid actors, and actress Katie Holmes, was marked by strangeness from its very public inception. Cruise's ecstatic, now legendary couch-jumping display on The Oprah Winfrey Show in 2005 immediately entered the cultural lexicon, instantly cataloged in Behind the Lights archive. Public displays, E2, E1. It signaled a relationship that existed primarily as a performance for the cameras, driven by an almost frantic need to showcase passion. They married in 2006 inches, a lavish Italian ceremony, but behind the scenes, the relationship was deeply intertwined with Cruise's dominant commitment to the Church of Scientology, an organization that critics allege exerted significant control over the lives of its high-profile members. For 6 years, the marriage continued, producing their daughter Suri. Publicly, the family unit appeared stable, if perpetually scrutinized. However, by the summer of 2012, reports began to surface, later substantiated by legal and media analysis, that Holmes felt increasingly isolated and controlled, particularly regarding the direction of their daughter's upbringing and education, which was heavily influenced by Scientology. This sense of entrapment set the stage for one of the most calculated divorces in modern history. The explosion in the Cruise-Holmes marriage was the sudden, surgical precision of Katie Holmes's exit. While most celebrity divorces leak for months before the filing, Holmes executed a plan with the silence and efficiency of a covert operation. She reportedly used disposable cell phones and established a legal team in New York, a strategically chosen jurisdiction that offered specific advantages, particularly regarding custody matters, compared to California. She filed the papers on the 29th of June 2012 without Cruise's knowledge, catching him completely off guard while he was filming on location. The primary explosive element was the immediate, palpable fear that drove the maneuver. The media narrative was one of a mother desperately escaping an overreaching institutional environment to protect her child. This was not about dividing assets, though the settlements were certainly large. This was a fight for personal freedom, a struggle against alleged coercive control. Cruise and his legal team attempted to counter the narrative and move the case to a less favorable court, but the speed of Holmes's legal strategy preempted any drawn-out battle. In a truly unprecedented move for a high-net-worth, high-conflict celebrity divorce, the case was settled and finalized in just under 2 weeks. This record-breaking pace was the definitive sign that a quiet, massive compromise had been made. It is widely speculated that Cruise agreed to virtually all of Holmes's demands, including granting her sole physical custody and significant restrictions regarding Suri's exposure to Scientology, in exchange for avoiding a public trial that would have inevitably dredged up painful and potentially damaging institutional secrets. The Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes divorce, therefore, stands as a testament to the power of a strategic, coordinated legal strike. It demonstrated that sometimes the most successful and explosive divorce is not the one fought publicly for years, but the one executed quickly, decisively, and under an impenetrable shroud of secrecy, driven by the ultimate motive of safeguarding a loved one from a seemingly dominant external force. This calculated escape sets the stage for our final, most explosive entry. If the Woods divorce was physical chaos and the Holmes divorce was procedural strategy, our number one entry was a total cultural detonation. A public, legal, and emotional battle that transformed personal allegations into a globally streamed media spectacle, forever changing how we view celebrity testimony and truth. The calculated escape executed by Katie Holmes was effective, but it offered a measure of control that almost no celebrity couple manages to attain. For the vast majority, when the marriage ends in acrimony, it becomes a chaotic, uncontrollable public bloodbath. And no divorce in history has been more publicly exposed, more globally analyzed, or more culturally destructive than the final entry on our list. A legal battle that became the ultimate symbol of the digital age's relationship with celebrity scandal. Top 1. The trial of the century, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. When Johnny Depp, the enigmatic, quirky Hollywood outsider, married Amber Heard, the rising actress, in 2015, their coupling was fleetingly romantic, yet undeniably volatile. Their marriage lasted only 15 months, but the legal and cultural wreckage it left behind continues to redefine the boundaries of privacy, defamation, and abuse allegations in the public sphere. The initial explosion occurred in May 2016, when Heard filed for divorce and simultaneously requested a temporary restraining order against Depp, alleging abuse. The accompanying photos of her bruised face and her subsequent deposition quickly established a public narrative. The couple eventually settled the divorce out of court in 2017 for $7 million, which Heard publicly pledged to donate to charity. The settlement included a non-disclosure agreement, a legal mechanism designed to enforce silence and allow both parties to move on. But the silence did not last. The true explosion began when Heard penned an op-ed in the Washington Post in 2018, describing herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. Though Depp was not explicitly named, the timing and context made the implication clear. This article served as the catalyst for a pair of titanic legal battles that would destroy both of their careers and personal lives. First came Depp's failed libel case against a UK newspaper in 2020 over an article that called him a wife-beater. Crucially, this was followed by his $50 million defamation lawsuit against Heard in Virginia over the op-ed. This defamation trial, which began in April 2022, was the ultimate spectacle. Unlike almost any previous major celebrity divorce case, the proceedings were fully televised and live-streamed, transforming a Virginia courtroom into a global entertainment forum. The 6-week trial became a continuous, real-time performance of intimate marital dysfunction, with both parties leveling shocking, detailed allegations of physical, verbal, and psychological abuse, coupled with testimony about drug use, self-harm, and property destruction. The details that emerged were often lurid and deeply disturbing. Allegations of mutual violence, a severed fingertip, feces left in a bed, and were consumed by millions globally. This event was instantly filed under Behind the Lights Archive, Media Trials, S10, E15, symbolizing the unprecedented moment when the legal process became completely subservient to the digital court of public opinion. Social media became the primary jury. Clips of testimony, carefully edited and often decontextualized, went viral across platforms like TikTok and YouTube, sparking vicious campaigns of ridicule and support for both sides. The hashtag supporting Depp amassed billions of views, reflecting a powerful and lopsided groundswell of public opinion that was influenced less by the full legal record and more by algorithmic spectacle. The trial became a cultural turning point, sparking fierce debate over the credibility of abuse victims, the role of social media in influencing legal outcomes, and the very definition of who can be considered a victim or an aggressor. The jury's verdict, which largely favored Depp, found that Heard had acted with actual malice in writing the op-ed, establishing that her statements were defamatory. Heard also won a partial victory in her countersuit against Depp's former attorney. The total cost of the legal fees, the settlement required, and the permanent, catastrophic damage to both actors' reputations was incalculable. The Depp-Heard case was explosive, because it took the shame of a private breakup and weaponized it for mass consumption, demonstrating that in the age of streaming, a celebrity divorce can become a live-action reality show that consumes the entire global discourse and casts a chilling effect on future public dialogue about domestic abuse. It was the ultimate uncontained explosion. We have analyzed 5 cases, each a unique testament to the destructive power of a celebrity breakup. The Tiger Woods and Elin Nordegren divorce showed us the price of hypocrisy and the rapid destruction of a billion-dollar brand built on a lie. Paul McCartney and Heather Mills exposed the spectacle of greed and the degradation of a legal process into a brutal, highly personal public feud. The Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie separation revealed the endless torment of custody warfare, turning a family's disintegration into a years-long legal morass. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes demonstrated the strategic necessity of a silent escape from institutional control. Finally, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard showcased the total obliteration of boundaries, turning private trauma into a globally streamed, viral media trial. These divorces confirm a painful truth. Celebrity love is often less a bond of affection and more an immense financial, legal, and public relations construct. When that structure collapses, the destruction is rarely contained. The cost is measured not just in hundreds of millions of dollars, but in permanently damaged legacies, psychological trauma, and the erosion of public trust. The details uncovered in these cases, the financial battles, the alleged abuses, the control, and the betrayal, are a high-stakes warning to anyone who believes the fantasy. Behind the lights, the end of the show is often far more dramatic, dark, and devastating than the opening act. Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Lights. If you want to dive deeper into the hidden archives of Hollywood's greatest disasters, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to see what explosive story we uncover next.